Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. So if you like video game collecting, if you like handheld gaming, modern and retro, and if you like Pokemon, hit subscribe. Today we're doing a retro review of Pokemon Gold and Silver. Arguably one of the greatest Pokemon games of all time, if not the greatest. Today let's take a look at what made Pokemon Gold so good. Released in Japan in November 1999, it wasn't until April 2001 that the games were finally released in Europe. The development of Gen 2 took much longer than anticipated due to the ever-increasing popularity of Pokemon, and also Game Freak being sidetracked by the release of Pokemon Stadium. Programmer Shigeki Morimoto stated development took 3.5 years due to the small team of only 4 developers. Satoru Iwata, who would go on to become Nintendo's president, helped the development team by developing tools to compress the Pokemon graphical code. The story. Set in the fictional region of Johto, which is based on Japan's Kansai and Tokel. This is noticeable by the many temples found within the game, as well as the Japanese aesthetic overall. Like the other Pokemon games, your aim is to collect all 8 gym badges and beat the Elite Four. Team Rocket have reunited, and once again you must stop them from their criminal activity and take down Team Rocket once and for all. Your 3 starter Pokemon are Chikorita, Cyndaquil and Totodile. Professor Elm is the local Pokemon professor for Johto. A mysterious rival has stolen one of Elm's starter Pokemon, and you will face them at different points in the game. After beating the Elite Four, you're now able to take on the 8 gym leaders in Kanto and see just how much has changed since you left. After you beat the Kanto gym leaders, you can now enter Mount Silver, which is full of powerful Pokemon. And you have one final battle deep within Mount Silver is Red, the main protagonist from Gen 1. Gameplay. Like the previous Pokemon games, this is a turn-based RPG from a top-down perspective. When you encounter a Pokemon, a battle sequence will begin. And after you beat the Elite Four, your other aim is to catch and fill your Pokédex. Catching Pokemon involves lowering the Pokemon's health in battle, and then using whichever Pokeball will be the most effective to catch it. Experience points are gained by defeating Pokemon in battle. Relatively early on in the game, you will be able to get experience share, which will give XP to whichever Pokemon is holding this item without that Pokemon having to actually battle. The biggest new feature in Generation 2 was having an internal clock. This kept track of both time and day of the week, which would influence when you would see certain Pokemon. This was in the Pokegear, and this gave us access to our map, our radio, phone, and obviously our watch. You could get trainers' phone numbers who would call you for a rematch. Some would tell you if rare Pokemon were in the area, and then not forgetting your mum calling to tell you that she had bought you something and that you could access it through the PC. Rare shiny Pokemon are now in the game. These Pokemon have different coloration than the normal species, and I do wonder how many shiny Pokemon 11-year-old me found without realising, because I played this on the original Game Boy in black and white, so I probably would have had no idea they were any different, and it wasn't until much later on that I actually found out about these shiny Pokemon. But 2 new types of Pokemon were also added to Generation 2. Dark and Steel were now added, as well as also genders for Pokemon, for the Pokemon breeding. So when leaving compatible types at daycare together, they would produce an egg, and it would inherit the species from the mother and the type from the father. The graphics. This was a multi-platform release for the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. For myself, I didn't experience this in colour, and it still looked incredible on my brick of a yellow Game Boy. The fact that 22 years ago I thought the game looked brilliant in black and white, and now at the grand old age of 34, my first playthrough in colour, and I still think the game looks absolutely brilliant, shows just how much I believe this art style and these games have really stood the test of time. The price. When you look back and think this game was around £30 in 2001, it's incredible really, given that you get basically 2 games in one, with the fact that you're able to go back and play through the Kanto region as well. There's no doubt that this would definitely be classed as DLC in today's modern age of gaming, and you would look to pay at least another £20, maybe £30 on top of that original base game price. With the 3DS eShop closed, we will look at cartridge only price. Now gold is going to set you back around £38 and silver a little bit more at £40. A boxed price is going from anywhere between £120 and £200 depending on the condition. We do have to talk about a couple of the faults and negatives of the game. So at the time, this definitely wasn't an issue, but 20 years on, the eternal clock has become a frustration for me. Having to change the batteries on the game, it's not exactly tricky, but there's always that risk of damaging the cartridge. And I can see why so many people just choose to emulate this now, because if you do end up accidentally damaging the cartridge when you're changing the battery and you have to go out and try and find a new one, and then that might not have a working battery in. So it's definitely become an issue more for collectors and retro gamers now. And then the bag storage, it was probably my main gripe about the game in 2001 and still in 2023. Storing things on the PC or having to make a special trip to pick stuff up from the PC, it was so annoying and still is so annoying, but it's one of the very few complaints I really have about the actual game and the actual gameplay. Just a few final thoughts. This is truly one of the best games of all time. For such a small team to create this game, it really is incredible. The only thing that lets this game down in 2023 is the issues related to the batteries and the cartridges, and maybe the price of the game now. When the game was released for the 3DS eShop, it solved all of the price issues and the replacement of the batteries. But since the closure of the 3DS eShop, we have all of those issues once more. It really can only be a matter of time before we see these games on the Nintendo Switch Online service, and it will be incredible to see everyone reliving their childhoods or being introduced to one of the best games in not only Pokemon history, but gaming history. Thank you so much for watching today's video. This is certainly one of my favourite games of all time. Let me know in the comments below what your opinions are on Pokemon Gold and Silver, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks a lot guys, take care everyone, bye 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 bye.